Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to part 2 of the review of the HUXWRX safety company Blastphemy. Earlier this week I released the first video that just went over the aspects of it, some of the materials, measurements, going over it on the bench. Tonight I'm actually going to be able to put some rounds through it. So just a quick overview, the Blastphemy is HUXWRX safety company's take on something similar like the Surefire Warden, along with other blast averters that are out there on the market. It is advertised to take the blast that comes out from the end of your muzzle, and where it would typically go all the way around the end of your muzzle, kind of an outward like an explosion. It's supposed to contain that and push it all forward. They advertise it as protecting the shooter and they're surrounding anybody who's with them, protect them from overpressure and micro concussions. So we will put that to the test. They also say that it is a thread protector with these coarse threads on these muzzle devices. Don't think that's really much of an issue, but it is something they advertise. And then lastly, they advertise that it's ideal for shooting in prone positions or from cover. So that one I could definitely see. My range here, it is, probably can't see it on the camera, but it is pretty flooded out. So I will not be laying down in the grass today. But I have come up with something that I think will help illustrate and show how well it does at diverting the blast from the prone position, or how it would be if you were laying in the dirt instead of kicking mud and sand and dirt all up in your face. So for today's video, I chose 3 different guns of mine that I have with various barrel lengths. One of them is a 16-inch IWI Zion. Next one down is my 13-inch IWI Galil Ace Gen 2 that has a 13-inch barrel. And then lastly is my Daniel Defense Mark 18, which has a 10.3-inch barrel. So we'll see if we notice any difference between the 3 different barrel lengths. I'm going to be using all the same type of ammo. One of them is going to be Tula 55 grain full metal jacket, and the other will be M855 62 grain steel tip. So I decided between those 2 ammos because a lot of people shoot 223, shoot Tula because it's cheap, especially with ammo prices these days. But then I'm sure there's going to be people who also want to see the performance of the HUXWRX Blastphemy, along with full power military type load. So some of the objectives that I have for this is testing the sound of concussion diversion, checking for the blast diversion for shooting prone off cover, and then one of the things that I brought up in the last video, where the front of the Blastphemy is very, very similar to HUXWRX suppressors, where you see these spiral openings here. I think I did make mention how that may help divert some of the flash. I do want to clarify that nowhere does HUXWRX say it helps with flash suppression. So I would highly doubt that these flutes here, considering the design of the Blastphemy, are going to do anything at all. I think it's probably more for a styling cue and keeping it familiar with the brands. Some of the other things that I'm going to be taking a look at is, how well does it stay tight? I did mention in my first video, just hand tighten this down. The first time I did have to use a wrench on the wrench flats, which thankfully this has, to get it off, just because I twisted it on too tight. I want to see if it has any issues loosening it up under fire. I did also mention last video that being that HUXWRX's suppressors and the Blastphemy are reverse thread, they're left-hand thread, and one of the benefits of their suppressors is that as the bullet shoots and travels and twists clockwise, as it comes out of the barrel, it tightens the suppressor down with every shot that you take. In addition to that, if you ever get carbon lock onto your suppressor mount and you have to take a wrench to it, as you turn it to the left, you do not have to worry about your suppressor mount potentially coming off of your barrel and then being stuck inside of your suppressor, or in this case inside of the Blastphemy. So on the opposite end, checking to see if this thing loosens up under fire, I will also be seeing, does it get carbon locked? I do have my wrench with me. If it does, I can easily twist it back off. I am interested to see how hot it gets. Considering that it's basically just a cage around the suppressor mount, I'm sure it is going to get pretty hot. Would highly doubt that it's going to get as hot as a can will, but we'll see. And then what does the finish look like afterwards? Now that's not really a big deal to me. Some people may care about that. It does have the black nitride QPQ finish on it, whatever QPQ means. But after I shoot it, which is going to be about 120 rounds between the magazines I have here, and then at the very end, I am going to go ahead and unload this ATI Schmeiser 60 round magazine. So kind of a double review. I'll cut a different video for that one, but I have not tried this out yet. So all in all, 120 rounds, 60, 180 rounds. We'll see what this thing looks like once we're done. I will shoot some rounds, about 5 shots with it off, 5 shots with it on, out of each gun, and out of each type of ammo. So being that the Blastphemy is a blast diverter, I'm here at my range, and it has this overhead awning here, which really kind of reverberates as you shoot. So I think that'll be it'll be the best that I can do in order to simulate shooting indoors. I do not have access to an indoor shoot house. That's probably where this would be most beneficial. But this is the best that I'm going to get. And then lastly, some of the observations that are made about these blast diverters is that they create fireballs once you put them on, which I can see, you know, flash suppressor, flash hider works by breaking up the gases coming out of the end of your muzzle, the unspent, unburnt gases, and disperses them so they don't create a fireball. I can see, you know, before we even get into this, that is now going to be contained. Those gases will be contained inside of the Blastphemy, so we'll see how much if it makes a fireball or not. So our range here, it is nighttime, even though it may look like day, but these are lights. So fortunately for me, my range is 24/7. It is about 8:30 at night. It is very dark out. So when I do the portion of the testing that will show how much flash that the Blastphemy gives off, I will turn the lights off that are out there in the field, so you can see how much flash that it really produces. All right, so moving on to the shooting, I'm going to test all 3 guns while seated at this bench, and I'm going to be testing for the sound diversion along with the blast diversion. Now, I highly doubt that any difference in sound is going to be able to be captured on video here with my phone, so I will just have to try to verbally tell you guys if I see or if I hear any difference whatsoever. But who knows, maybe we'll get lucky and you will be able to capture on the film. So what I have also, as you see on the table, are 3 sheets of paper. So for testing blast diversion while shooting prone or from behind cover, I mentioned I'm not laying down in the wet mud over there, so figure I'll put these 3 pieces of paper down. The muzzle will be right over directly on top of them, so if there is blast that is coming off, you should see the sheets of paper fly around or move, and then see if anything happens once I put the Blastphemy on itself. I am going to take 5 shots with Tula with no bare muzzle, and then 5 shots of Tula with the Blastphemy, and then 5 shots of M855 with bare muzzle, and 5 shots of M855 with the Blastphemy. I'm going to start off with the 16-inch IWI Zion 15, then I will move on to the 13-inch barreled Galil Ace, and then onto the 10.3-inch barreled Mark 18, repeating that drill for all 3 guns. Some of you may also notice, and I'll probably get some crap for it, is the tape that I have put over my weapon lights in order to protect them from getting carbon burns. Like I mentioned in my first video, one of the best benefits for the Blastphemy for me is that it will keep my lights, my weapon lights, from getting cooked when I'm not shooting them suppressed. Yes, I know Cloud Defensive and mod lights are fully capable of taking the blast, and I also know that some people say, especially on the internet, that you're not cool if you're not burning up your lights. But for me, you know, I always change configurations of my guns and change my mind of what I want and what I don't want. Carbon burning definitely affects the resale value, along with not having to clean off lenses on a regular rhythm or put chapstick on it or a little bit of Vaseline. I don't have to do that. Why? So for this test, since I am going to be shooting it without the Blastphemy on there, I did put tape on the weapon lights of all 3 of these guns. You can go ahead and make fun of me if you want to. Now moving on to M855. So, definitely noticed some fireball coming out with M855 with the Blastphemy attached. I do want to say, and I was trying to watch the paper move around, shooting it with out the Blastphemy along with it. Not really sure. I still saw the paper moving around with the Blastphemy attached to it. So don't know how much that would do laying prone in the ground. As far as the sound differential, it does have a slightly different tone. Obviously I'm wearing hearing protection. I don't know how much difference that would really make when you were shooting it, or if you were shooting it, say, indoors. So let's move on to the Galil. Alright, so here we go with a 13-inch barreled Galil. Same drill, 5 rounds of Tula, bare muzzle, 5 rounds of Tula, Blastphemy, 5 rounds of M855 bare muzzle, and 5 rounds of M855 with the Blastphemy. All right. So here's 55 grain Tula with the Blastphemy attached. Lots of fireball there. All right, M855 bare muzzle. Alright, now M855 with the Blastphemy attached. This is probably definitely going to make some pretty good fireballs. Holy crap. You know, I want to say, if anything, on that one, I felt more concussion with the Blastphemy attached than I did without it shooting M855. You can definitely feel a big difference in M855 over 223 Tula. You can see, at least on this gun with the 13 inches, maybe it has to do with the shorter barrel. They all have the same flash suppressor, HUXWRX flash suppressor, so I'm sure it's just the shorter barrel with more unburnt gases coming out. But it did move around the paper a lot more than it did with the 16 barrel. So moving on to the 10.3 inch barreled Mark 18. I will say that I am definitely glad that I wore this glove, because this thing does get pretty hot. So same drill, 5 rounds of Tula bare muzzle, 5 rounds of Tula with the Blastphemy, 5 rounds of M855 bare muzzle, and 5 rounds with the Blastphemy. Going down and chopping off almost 3 inches of the barrel. This should be interesting to see what kind of flames we get out of this thing. So. 5 rounds with the Blastphemy attached, Tula 55 grain. Alright, now we got M855 bare muzzle. Now M855 with the Blastphemy. Woo-hoo-hoo! Yeah, that definitely has got some flash. All right, so now that we've ran through that drill, it's hard to say. You know, I got to be honest with you. I feel like, at least under the cover here, I felt more concussion with the Blasphemy than I did with just the bare muzzle. It may just be the nature of this tin or aluminum awning that I have on here. Like I said, I don't have access to an actual shoot house, so and then the fireball. It definitely, without a doubt, produces much more fireball without having the Blasphemy on there. And as you see here, reason I say I protect my lights, still managed to blast the tape off of that one. But you can see there, it definitely stands it up pretty quickly. So let's go ahead and move on to seeing from the opposite view. So I'll put the camera out there in the field. I'll aim it back towards me, and I will shoot with the Blasphemy off and along with the Blasphemy on. So shooting without it is really going to be just more beneficial for any of you guys that have HUXWRX flash hiders, or if you want to buy a flash hider, to see how much of an effective job that it does with these various barrel lengths. I know I posted a video on my Instagram page. I'm sorry, my YouTube, yes, Instagram page, shooting my Tavorsar that has a 16-inch barrel on the pitch dark. Same here, and it showed very minimal flash coming out of the end of it. Now granted, again, that's a 16-inch barrel, so we will see how we'll do at the various with the 13 along with the 10.3, and then we'll really get to see some fireball come out of the end of that Blasphemy. All right, so I know you probably can't see me right now, probably just a shadow with the lights behind me being on. Did turn the lights off in the field. I hope this can, it is a little bit bright, but kind of highlight the flash that you get from the having no Blasphemy on there, so you just see the efficiency of the HUXWRX flash hider, and then also you're going to see the fireballs that come out of the with the Blasphemy attached. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did in the previous exercise, where I'm going to shoot 5 rounds of Tula, 5 rounds of Tula with the Blasphemy, 5 rounds of M855 bare muzzle, and then 5 rounds with the Blasphemy. So here we go. IWI Zion, 16 inches, bare muzzle. .55 grain Tula, Blasphemy attached. .62 grain M855 bare muzzle. Now 62 grain M855 with the Blasphemy attached. Wow, that definitely makes a blast. Okay, so 55 grain Tula, bare muzzle. .55 grain Tula, Blasphemy. .62 grain M855 bare muzzle. .62 grain M855 with the Blasphemy. Woo. So we'll definitely say you hear a difference in sound and tone with the Blasphemy on there. It does sound more contained. It's kind of the best way that I can describe it. So Also, this thing does seem to get on. I don't know if it's carbon locking or if it is actually tightening down as I shoot, but there's been a couple times that I've been pulling it on and off that it's really tough to pull off. I almost thought I was going to have to grab my wrench. So that's it for the Galil 13-inch barrel. Let's move on to the 10.3-inch barrel Mark 18. Okay, last but not least, Mark 18. Tula, 55 grain, bare muzzle. Tula, 55 grain with the Blastphemy. Yeah, after that last shot, I couldn't get it off my hand. I had to take a wrench to it. So, M855, 62 grain, bare muzzle. And finally, 62 grain M855 with the Blastphemy. Alright, so as you can see, definitely does create a fireball. Do see a difference in tone. Like I mentioned, it seems like it's more contained. So let's go ahead and move on to... Okay, so that wraps up my video review of the HUXWRX safety company, Blastphemy. What do I think about it overall? Well, actually, first let me go ahead and touch base on some of the things that I mentioned in the beginning of the video that I wanted to notice for observation. So, does it come loose while firing? No, it did not seem to come loose. In fact, it did do the opposite, where it seemed like it got tighter. The last couple of runs that I did, going through high strings of, fast strings of fire, I did end up having to use my wrench to get it off. As far as the finish goes, I mean, it'll probably shine up, but onto the other observation, it gets hot as hell. Probably definitely not as hot as the suppressor would get, obviously, but very, very hot. Definitely glad that I was wearing a glove. So in summary and final thoughts, what do I think of it? So it's a pretty cool device. Does it do exactly what they say as far as diverting sound? Maybe. Maybe we expect too much, or I expect too much of what blast diversion should do. I mentioned that the only other experience that I have with one of these is on my 9mm AKV that has the fake bulgy flash hider. It's more like a diverter. It's like a cone. It's almost the exact same thing. When you shoot it with it on, the tone is different. It sounds like it's a little bit contained. Same thing would go with the Blastphemy here. It definitely creates fireballs, major fireballs. So if that's something of an issue for you or a concern, you're probably not going to want to get the Blastphemy. As you guys saw, the M855, while I believe the propellant that is used in that is to minimize flash, once you put it on, the Blastphemy on the gun, now those gases or those unburnt particles of powder are contained in that can, and it just makes a massive fireball. Obviously getting bigger with each shorter barrel that I went from 16 to 13, and really big on the 10.3. So it's gonna serve the purposes that I want, as far as when I'm not shooting suppressed, any of my guns that have the HUXWRX flash hiders on them. I have my 3 here. I do also have a Tafore SAR, and I'm waiting on a Ballistic Advantage 13.9 upper to come back from Triarch that has the extended flash hider on it, to bring that legal length up to 16 inches, so I don't have to get any more stamps like I have here on my Galil and my Mark 18. So all of those guns, I would move the light as far forward as I possibly can to reduce suppressor shadow. So now when I'm shooting those unsuppressed, I can use the Blastphemy here to not absolutely cook my lights. So for me, that will be the biggest purpose that it serves, along with just kind of looking cool. So it is a bit of a pricey device, as I mentioned in the first video. $175 from HUXWRX website. I have not seen it anywhere else. It is pretty new, but if you do register to their newsletter or register an account on HUXWRX, which is free, you get a 15% off coupon. So This ended up costing me about $156 and change after tax and shipping. So is it blasphemy for you? You know, for all the points that I brought up from my first video and now my second video, you know, you're gonna have to answer that for yourself. I do think it's pretty cool. Don't regret buying it. So that's about it. If you liked the video, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my videos, share them, and thank you very much for taking the time to watch.